Hello and welcome back to this second part of my Fusion for Beginners mini-series translated into English. In the first video, by the way, if you haven't seen it already, link is in the description. In the first video, we were talking about where to get Fusion. Yes, in the internet, of course, blackmagicdesign.com. That link is also down in the description. And I have some good news for you. It's free. Go download it right now and then come back and follow this video here. Next, we have been talking about Fusion's user interface. What are all these areas good for here, and can we customize it if we like to? Yes, we can. If you want to find out how, watch that first video or rewatch it. What else? We were talking about the difference between layer-based compositing to node-based compositing. We work in this flow area down here, and we connect nodes together instead of working in a layer-based structure like some of you might know from Photoshop or After Effects, for example. Then we managed to grab some of these nodes, build a very simple scene, rendered that out at the very end of that video. And what else? Something else? Audio. Fusion is not designed to fit your audio needs. Sorry. It is right. You have the ability to load in an audio clip for reference, but that's it. Down here, you have that option. But yeah, nothing more. Just reference audio, which is okay. And yeah, that's where we left off, I think 6 or maybe even 7 months ago. Alright, now let's take a look at some other nice functions Fusion has to offer. These 5 buttons down here, what can they do for you? They can speed up your workflow or make your project look nicer in your image view window. Meaning, turn them on or off depending on your needs. No, honestly, this first one here, for example, high quality, can help. Let's say you have some text in the image view and you simply do not like the way it looks. Then chances are you have auto proxy turned on and high quality turned off. Just turn it on for a second and you will see that your text actually looks pretty smooth. Same thing with motion blur. I would suggest turn it off while working and then turn it on to check if your motion blur looks good or not. But the probably best way to save performance is to work with proxy files. What is a proxy? A proxy is a downscaled version of your original source footage, which might be just too huge in file size to work flawlessly. What you have to keep in mind though is to jump back to your original high quality footage right before rendering. Otherwise, you won't get the quality you were after. And while that's repairable, you can always go back, change the footage then and re-render everything. It's pretty boring to render the same scene over and over and over again. We can use our time for better things, I guess. Lunch, maybe. A walk in the park. Or a cup of coffee while watching Stranger Things. That sounds good, right? Okay, All these options work pretty fine. Just give them a try if you think you need a performance boost, high quality motion blur, and working with proxies. And the last button in the row here is called selective update. Well, as you can see, mine says some. I could also turn it to none or all. Let me turn it back to some. Up here in my image view, I can now specify a so-called region of interest. And when I then make changes in the flow area, only that specific part of the image will be updated. Does this make sense? I hope. That has 3 advantages in my opinion. First, it's saving performance. We are not updating the whole frame, only a specific part. Second, you can concentrate on that specific part just a little bit better. And last but not least, you directly see before and after. Just turn on some and everything will be okay. Good. Yes, remember, once your project slows down rapidly, just activate proxies or deactivate motion blur or whatever. Now let's recap what we did in the first video. This is my loader node. I load in a clip and let's take a look at it in the second image view window like this. If this was too fast for you, that's a pretty good sign that you have to watch the first video again. Anyway, I need to focus. Focus, Toby, focus. To drag this picture around, or this movie clip around, I click and hold the middle mouse button. And then I can drag my picture around. No problem. Zooming, left mouse button and middle mouse button, and then I'm able to zoom. Let me put this on the side. We will need it in a couple of minutes. Okay, all fine and dandy, but it's only 2D. And one very cool thing that you can work with in Fusion is a 3D space. Pretty cool. No need to install any plugins. You can just start working in 3D space right away. And please don't get me wrong here. I am a Creative Cloud customer. I have After Effects installed and also Element. I love working with those tools. They are very, very nice to work with. Absolutely no offense, but for somebody just starting out, those tools can get very quickly very, very, very expensive. Just spend your money on a good workstation and try to learn with free or even open source software. And guess what? It's not a waste of time, because everything you learn here in Fusion, and once again, it's free, can later easily be adapted in every other compositing tool out there. After Effects, Nuke, whatever. Alright, let's do not lose track and let us take a look at some of Fusion's 3D tools. Tools up here, 3D. We have an extra category only for 3D nodes. Besides these 3D nodes here, we also have particle nodes, and the particle systems also work in 3D space. But yeah, that's just a little side note. Let's jump back to the 3D nodes. And let me start with the shape 3D node, this one here. I click on one to make it visible in the first image view window. Okay. By default, this shape node is set to plane. We can change that to cube, like this. Sphere, hang on, fit. To cylinder, cone, torus, which looks a little bit like a donut, and ICO. For now, let's go with the cube and ignore the settings down here, please. Immediately we can see that this first image view window looks different to the one on the right with the 2D loader node in it, which only proves that Fusion recognizes the kind of node you are working with. We have this grid here, for example, or for a 2D node you will not get this symbol down here in the corner, this one, which shows you the axis in 3D space. Y is green, X is red, and Z is blue, which is hidden here. And your objects in 3D space have these, I don't know, how can I call them? Handlebars, maybe? The Fusion manual calls it on-screen transformation controls, I think. But yeah, whatever, just a name. Moving in 3D space is not so different to moving in 2D space. Middle mouse button is panning your view. Zooming is the same, left and middle mouse button, and Alt on Windows or Option on a Mac plus middle mouse button rotates your view. And now you can see that we are definitely in 3D space. We can rotate all around our object. Fine. This grid here, for somebody who never really worked in 3D space, that might be a little confusing, can be turned off pretty easily. Just right click here somewhere in the image view and then 3D options, grid. Just turn it off if you don't like it. But now the only thing that indicates that we are working with a 3D object are these on-screen transformation controls, which only show up when the node is selected, but once I click away, they're gone. And we're left with this flat, not even looking like a cube thing. We can rotate around because we know it's a 3D object, but it looks just weird. And that's because we do not have any lights in our scene. Lights create shadows, and shadows create shapes for our human brain. That's just the way it works. But before we now start to build a lighting setup for our mesh, by the way, is only a different word for a 3D model. We could build lighting setups. Here we have 4 different lights. There is a much quicker way here in Fusion to generate the illusion of lighting. Just by clicking on this light button down here, we get this working light, which is pretty cool, pretty quick way to view your mesh. Maybe we are in a state of our project where we do not know exactly what kind of mesh we want to work with, and then it's yeah, pretty cool time saver. I just turned on my grid again because I'm so used to it, and I like to work with the grid turned on for orientation purposes. I'm sure all you 3D guys out there will understand why. Yeah, lights. Just leave this light button on and you're good to go. Another thing we can activate down here is the wireframe mode by clicking on wire. It's a pretty common thing in 3D modeling software, but in Fusion I never used it. But yeah, it's there if you need it. Quad view can also be activated. Once again, this is something you already know if you have ever used 3D software before. Yeah, now we do not only have this perspective view, we also get a right view, a front view, and a top view. And it does not matter in which of these quads we do rotate or move our model. It's still just one model, just being shown from 4 different perspectives. All right. Talking about moving and rotating objects, let me first switch back to my perspective view only by clicking on quad again, like this. It's, of course, you've just seen it, possible to move your objects by clicking on these little arrows, and then you can move it around. You can also rotate the objects by using this rotate function here, and there is a third one. Let's scale. We can now scale it up or down pretty easily. If you do not like to do that in the image view, there is an option over here, the third tab with this symbol here. And now you can do it numerically by typing in the numbers, which is more accurate, of course. Yeah. Translation, rotation, and scale. The scale value also has this lock XYZ or Z checkbox. Just uncheck it and you can grab your axis independently, which is pretty helpful sometimes. Yeah. Good. Let's just delete this node for now, even though there are more functions we could talk about. I would like to show you another way cooler method to open 3D meshes in your flow. Of course, we could create a 3D text here or this image plane, just like this, easy, but that's not what I want to do right now. I delete it. Right now, I would like to go to File, Import, because now we are importing a 3D mesh from another application, in my case, Blender. All you Blender guys will immediately recognize the model that I've chosen. It's called Monkey. In my case, it's an FBX file, but down here you can see we have a couple of other options from Blender. It's I found FBX works best if you use Blender. I click OK, and now I could import my camera, slides, whatever. I just want to import my mesh just like this. And here it is. I delete this transform node, and here's my Suzanne. Yay! I click on one, and here it is in the first image view window. And just like with any model I created directly here in Fusion, I can now activate the wireframe mode, or I can work with lighting on my mesh, and I can, of course, rotate it. I can scale it or move it around, which is very good because you might have seen that Fusion's modeling options are very limited, and this offers us the opportunity to work with more complex models right inside of Fusion. All right, let me come back now to our footage. We have this Suzanne monkey and the 2D loader node. I would like to merge the two together. The most obvious way would be to use this merge node. But there is one problem. It's a 2D merge node. Our footage now lives in the background, and we have a foreground that can be fed with something. 2D merge nodes only combine 2D objects, and they only combine 2 images at a time, which means you need to chain these merge nodes once you have more than 2 images that you would like to blend together. Whew. All right, let's just try to take our Suzanne and plug it in here. Whoops, that won't work. I click right mouse button and try this again. No chance. Like I told you, it's a 2D merge node, which means it's simply not possible to plug in our 3D objects in here right away. We first have to generate a 2D readable object, basically a picture, that Fusion will then accept to be the merge node's foreground. Oh my, that was complicated, but I think you get the point. Hopefully. Good. There is a node for everything, and the one we need right now is called Renderer 3D. This one. And now we can plug it into the merge node, and woo, we combined the two. It's looking pretty stupid, no doubt, but that can be fixed. First, why do we have this border here, and why is it not the same size as our background, which was filmed in UHD 3840 by 2160, as you can see here. And the Suzanne, our 3D model, or the result that the renderer 3D node generates, is in the full HD format, 1920 by 1080. That can be changed in the preferences, and you can change it for your actual composition or for all future compositions right here. But I won't do this right now. What I do now to fix it is to open the resize node and to resize my background to full HD, which is a little bit easier in this case, I think. Fine, now we have fixed the first problem. Let's move on and deal with the next, which is the lighting. Yes, we have created ourselves this nice working light, but that's simply not existing in our 2D composition. The 2D merge node is not accepting this working light as a real lighting setup, which means we have to build one. And like you would do it in the real world, we first have to find our camera's position. And once the camera is in position, we can then build our lighting, which is not Fusion specific, by the way. That's just the way it works best. So let's do this. First, we need something that combines all our 3D objects together. And like we did it with 2D objects, we used this merge node. There is a node that combines all 3D objects, and that's simply called merge 3D. So we have a 2D merge node and a 3D merge node. The difference is that this merge node accepts more than 2 objects. My typical setup, yes, I do have a typical setup because it makes my life much easier from time to time. My typical setup looks like this. In the middle of things, we have this merge node. On its right, the renderer node, and left all my meshes and materials. Below the merge, I am placing my camera, and above it my lights later on. But first let's place the camera. Therefore I use both image view windows for this merge node, and in the first image view window I look at it from the perspective view. That will be the window where we move our camera. And in the second image view window I would like to look through the camera, which can be done by right clicking down here on perspective, and then I choose the camera. Right now that looks a little bit weird, but don't panic, everything is alright. The reason for it is that the camera right now is placed at the origin of our 3D world. Fusion simply cannot decide for you where to place the camera, lights, models, and so on. So everything you import into your 3D scene will be placed at this origin, which is a good thing. Otherwise, you would find yourself constantly searching for 3D objects that are all over the place. Well, thankfully that's not necessary. Alright, let's reposition the camera. With my camera node selected, I can now just grab these arrows here and pull the camera out just like this. And in the second image view window we can instantly see what we are doing. Now let me show this merge here. Boom. This is looking much better. Well, let's ignore the fact that we are placing a monkey in front of a building. Where's the point in that? But okay. Too much questions. Now, to fine-tune the position of our mesh, we can do this in the camera node, of course, either by dragging these sliders around, typing in numbers, or on screen. Or we can move, scale, rotate the mesh itself, no problem. Nice, let's add some lights. 4 different light types here in Fusion. Let's start with an ambient light. Not that I would like to use it for this scene, but let me show you real quick what it's doing. An ambient light, here it is illuminating your scene evenly. Typically you have to play a little bit with the intensity and let's say with the color. This, for example, could be night sky, something like that. Alright, but it's not creating any shadows, which leaves us with still a flat monkey. I deleted it for now. Next light, directional light. You guessed it, it shines in only one direction. And it does not matter where you place it in your scene, it's just shining from that one angle you tell it to, like the sun, for example. And these lines here, don't know if you can see them, they are pointing into the light's direction. Yeah, hope you can see them. And if you want to change that direction, then simply rotate the lamp. Actually, let's do this here and create a cool looking side light. Spooky, like this. Okay. I delete this directional light and create the third light, a point light. Need to connect it to my merge. Yeah, this is it. It's basically like a light bulb shining in all directions evenly. Okay, I delete that as well, and the lamp I now want to work with is called the spotlight. It's the only light source in Fusion that creates shadows. Right now it's, remember, placed at the origin. That's because we can't see it. I pull this out a touch, and here it is. But while everything looks good in the first image view window, nothing has changed in the second. Why is that? We have to change something in the renderer. We have to enable lighting, boom, and shadows. Whee! That's looking much better. Once again, lighting and shadows. If you remember where this all started, I would say we made huge progress. All right, that's basically it. But one more word about lighting and shadows here in Fusion. This spotlight is creating light and shadows, like I said, but not only on the mesh itself, also from one mesh to the other. I create this plane here real quick so you can see what I mean. Like this. Now the monkey is casting a shadow on the plane. If you do not see the shadow, you should, but if you do not see it, chances are you have receive shadows disabled on the mesh. Or, second chance, the monkey is not casting shadows. And the reason why this is not working for me right now is that I have to change an important setting in the renderer node, this renderer type here. It's by default set to software. I change it to OpenGL and then everything works like expected. Nice. I think that is all for now. Of course, we only scratched the surface when it comes to 3D space in Fusion. And now it's on you. Play around with all these settings. Try different lighting setups, add materials, explore functions we haven't talked about, and basically start having fun with Fusion's 3D space. It's really, really, really powerful. And like I said, once you understand how Fusion's 3D space works, you can easily adapt it and use these techniques in your software of choice, whatever that might be. Guys, thank you very, very, very much for watching. I know it's been quite a long video, but hey, basics. I hope you learned something along the way, and if you would like to learn even more, you're welcome to check out one of my Fusion minis, or I have some nice Blender minis as well, Adobe minis. Check out my videos, for God's sake. Thank you very, very much. I hope to see you in the next video. Bye for now.